Okay, this kind of rush broadcast, kind of emergency broadcast, a couple of pieces of information I want to get out to you. The first thing I want to do is I want to go back and visit February, March, where I put out a warning about cesium-137 on an episode that I did so that you can see that I was telling you the truth and what's happening now. And we'll get into the shrimp and all that other stuff. And then I want to talk a little bit about a woman who's deceased. Her name is Henrietta Lacks. And she developed a form of aggressive cancer. And this cancer grew so fast that it just consumed her body in like 48 hours. She died in the hospital. And they found out those cancer cells were immortal. They never died. And they've been using that in production of different types of lab-grown meat and other things, and we'll get into some of the facts and we'll look at it real quick. That's coming out of Japan, and what that is, it has to do with the International Atomic Agency. Is 8 months ago, approved Japan to begin dumping all of the contaminated radioactive water from the Fukushima nuclear power plant into the Pacific Ocean off the coast of where the reactor was. And that process is complete. They dumped, this last dump was 1,300,000 tons of contaminated water was dumped in the ocean. And the reason this was dumped in the ocean, and the reason that they approved this, because they're out of space. They ain't got any more room for storage tanks, and they need that ground for the decommissioning process to disassemble this reactor. Why I wanted to bring up all this information and all this stuff is I want you to see the seriousness of what I'm talking about when I talk about Fukushima, selenium-137, radioactive contamination. It's in everything. I buy Vandy-Camp. If I buy frozen fish, I only buy Vandy-Camp because it's harvested. Most of it's harvested off the Grand Banks, and it comes through Gloucester, Massachusetts. A lot of it does. Some of it comes out of the waters near Iceland and stuff. You've got to be real careful on eating that Pacific stuff, especially now when they just finished dumping 1.3 million tons of waste into the Pacific Ocean again. So it's just the contamination levels way up again. You just gotta.
Now being recalled because it may have come into contact with radioactive material. The shrimp was sold under several brand names, all of it manufactured by Southwind Foods. It was sold in 9 states. The closest one to us was in Pennsylvania. The recall started earlier this week with frozen shrimp sold at Walmart. Inspections turned up cesium-137 in shipping containers and shrimp from Indonesia.
Avoid shrimp contaminated with radioactive material. These products may have been sold at Walmart in 13 states. Americans are being warned not to eat, sell, or serve certain great value raw frozen shrimp sold at Walmart after toxic levels of radioactive cesium-137 were detected. Cesium-137 is a man-made radioactive isotope produced in nuclear reactions. The isotope has been linked to long-term health risks.
We are now, the South Asian nations are now dumping shrimp on our country. The shrimp is heavily contaminated. We just stopped a shipment that was contaminated with cesium-157, which is radioactive. They're farming these shrimps, and they use bactericides, antibiotics, and all kinds of chemicals, and the shrimp are so contaminated that the European nations won't take them, so they're dumping them all here.
Yeah, so it's like back in March, we put together that episode about declining food quality, and we discussed a lot of issues, and that was part 2. Is if you want to watch the full episode, just go back to March in the show program and look up part 2, and it'll have all that information in there, all the photographs of the destroyed reactor, of all the storage facilities that they're disassembling, and they're dumping all the contaminated waste, and all that contaminated waste has slid down the coast of Japan and filtered into the Philippines and into Indonesia area, and this is the source of this cesium-137 contamination is coming almost from all of that water that's flushing down into Indonesia across the end of Japan. And it's not just the shrimp. It's any kind of fish coming out of that Pacific Ocean. That's why I warned you about it. But we want to get into, I want to get into a different subject called Henrietta Lacks. And she was an African-American woman in the 1950s who developed a very aggressive form of cancer, and the cancer grew like the blob, and it like ate half, 3/4 of her whole body in like 24 hours. And they says, we never seen anything like this. It's the most aggressive malignant cancer cell ever seen on Earth from patient 0, Henrietta Lacks. And they've taken that small cell line and they've used it for almost everything they can think of. And one of the things they do is they take it, put it in a pool or a tank, a metal tank, and they add some growth hormone in there, some water, saline solution. They throw in a chunk of beef, and then the cancer cells attack that to try to grow, to get energy to grow, and they copy that, and they reproduce and copy that beef, and that's what they call lab-grown meat. And we'll get into that, and we're going to talk a little bit about Bill Gates and his support for that company that's producing this called Upside Foods in Texas. And I really want to get on the board by telling you that this lawsuit that Upside Foods startup funded by Bill Gates is underway, a federal lawsuit to stop the state of Texas from banning this food, because the law went into effect yesterday that you're not allowed to sell lab-grown meat in Texas and several other states. And we'll cover some of the other states later. But that's where I really want us to focus now on this part, is this warning. I'm warning you to stay away from this lab-grown meat stuff, and I'm going to show you why. This is an image of Henrietta Lacks. This is who she is. Here's a picture of Henrietta's cells. You can see how these cancer cells are reaching like tentacles out to grab the tissue around it. Here's a statement from the industry. I'll just read it to you. The need to produce immortal food-relevant cell lines is one of the most pressing challenges of cellular agriculture. The field seeks to produce meat and other synthetic products via tissue engineering and synthetic biology. Immortal cell lines have long and complicated story, but the first recognized immortal human cell lines taken from Henrietta Lacks today. So Upside Food in Texas has filed this federal lawsuit against Senate Bill 261 that has now taken effect, wherein they claim it's unconstitutional because it blocks interstate commerce, so it's supposed to be unconstitutional. They're not addressing anybody's concerns about how it's made or grown or anything. They're just saying you can't do it because it's unconstitutional. Texas, of course, the state we're talking about, Indiana, Mississippi, Montana, Nebraska, Florida, and Alabama are the other 6 states that are also passing similar laws. There's a post that Bill Gates himself made. Cancer found in fake meat are totally harmless to humans. I think I can very confidently say, if there was any one person in this world that I wouldn't believe when it came to things like this, being cancer is safe, would be Bill Gates. No way. Meet the new meat right from Upside Foods website. This is off of Upside Foods website. They want you to sign a petition against Florida and Alabama who've banned this lab-grown cultivated meat. We're not only talking about me here. Bezos has got himself a fake fish laboratory where they're using the same process to grow fake salmon. And here's a quick look at some of the vat tanks they use to grow this stuff in. Okay, well, that's going to about cover it. I really want you to know that I'm doing this sincerely. You need to try to stay away from this lab-grown meat. I don't make this stuff up. I'm serious about this stuff. Just like I was serious back in March when I warned you about this cesium-137. It's a byproduct of the atomics that they use in that nuclear power plant there in Fukushima that got destroyed. And they just dumped all that back into the ocean again and contaminating the fish. It's not just the shrimp, it's everything. Stay away from Pacific fish. And this lab-grown meat stuff. Can you imagine if you ever get your hands on that stuff, you better cook it till it's burnt black, and there ain't anything left alive in it. Because I'm telling you right now, you eat any of those cells, and if they're still alive, they'll get in your stomach, and if your acid doesn't kill it, this stuff is going to grow. What's the pharmaceutical industry say? Their future business is built upon cancer. And I believe that they're doing the best they can to make as many people get cancer as possible. Nutrition is important. Taking supplements that get the minerals in your body so your organs can function correctly. And stay away from this. Be very, very careful. If anything looks the least bit suspicious in the store, you're not sure if it's real chicken or real fish or real beef, just don't buy it. Go to your local farm stand, go to somebody that's doing it local, that's selling meat that you can believe in and you can trust. And be prepared that it's going to cost some more money. And it's going to be a challenge for your family and stuff, but especially if you have kids and it's teenage boys, they eat an awful lot, It's expensive, so you got to be careful because what you're feeding them could kill them in 10 years or 10 weeks. You don't know. It's so bad. So that's it for Emergency Broadcast. I appreciate it, and I want you to be serious now. I'm not joking, okay? You need to click the share button, put it on your timeline, on your Snapchat, or whatever you do. Do it now. Don't wait. Do it now. So share it with your friends so they can see this stuff. And you don't want your family and friends to get sick. So I'm asking you to share it, either an instant message or put it on your timeline where you know people are going to see it so they can get this message out. We need to get this message out so people can see the danger that's out there, and we need to protect ourselves. Thank you very much.